numbers at this point, just semantics. This was one of the greatest events of all time. And John, you were right there in the middle of it. What was it like watching this thing go down? Because I thought there was a moment in the third round where, I mean, largely you could have stopped the fight for either man. Diaz was knocked down twice. And in the closing seconds, it looked like if Nate had, 10, 20 more seconds, that McGregor was going to have to get out of there and be saved by yourself.
You know what? There was some back and forth moments in that fight. And you're looking. It cracks me up to listen to the fans talk about it because it's obvious who they wanted to win. Either they wanted Nate to win or they wanted Conor, and that's the way their opinion slides. Because I've heard that Nate wasn't even knocked down; he just went down on purpose. That's not true.
Right?
Conor knocked him down 3 times. He got hit with shots and good shots, and I thought Conor was very smart in the way he went about fighting Nate this time. And taking his time, not jumping into a situation. It's okay. I hit you. It's like chopping wood. I took a nice little chunk out of you, and now I'm not going to sit here and think that that's going to knock the tree down. I'm going to go back and start doing what I was doing to get to that point. And Nate did some incredible work, to the body, especially when he got him up against the cage.
Oh, yeah.
He did a lot of damage. There's people saying, why didn't you pull him off the cage? It's like, because I got one guy who's absolutely putting damage on another guy in that position, and he was doing a great job. In that third round, I've had a lot of people, were you close to stopping it? No, I was not close to stopping it because Conor was aware of what he was doing. He got hit with some shots, but he was blocking a lot, and he was rolling. His shoulders were blocking shots. He did a good job. He was tired. And he was trying to catch wind and let Nate go and not throw anything back a lot at that point because he was tired. And that's part of fighting, and it's called smart fighting. And that's what I was seeing out of both of them.
John, when you mentioned that in the third round, because at first with the first round, I thought the fight was following the same kind of tempo that their first match together did. And then when I looked at Conor, it was obvious to me that his training incorporated a lot of boxing skills because his way of moving, I don't want to call it so much as a bob and weave, is when he would lean to the right, step out, and turn on one foot away from his opponent, being Nate. These were movements that boxers make that I did not see in Conor on the last time, and he really did put to work whoever that, I forget the name of the person, the 6'3" boxer he was training with, but obviously he really had a very serious training camp, especially in the way he preserved his energy in the first and second round. And then I was looking at Nate, starting the fight. Then I was looking at Nate, and it was really evident to me, and I watched it yesterday. I had to watch this on TV because I wanted to see it from a TV viewpoint versus our great seats we have, yours especially. But you could tell Nate was favoring a leg, okay? And I get the feeling he'd had a damaged leg going into this fight. It wasn't just from those brutal kicks, but Nate was in there like a warrior. They were both warriors, and I was just astounded at what I was watching. It was incredible.
Yeah, there was a couple things that you could see out, and Nate was favoring the left side of his body.
Right.
And you could see how he would bring it, but he would turn, and he would actually let Conor go and dig, with a left hand to his body, but he didn't like getting hit with the right hand. And so I think Nate did come in with a couple of, he came in with a couple of boo-boos on him. That's what happens. That's part of, training for the fight. The one thing that I would really look at, there's moments in fights, and I don't know if, the fans see them, but I see them at times. And there was moments where, it was going exactly like you were saying, just very similar to the first fight. And Nate had that moment where he was starting to take over, and you could see it on Conor's face, and you could see at a certain point, he was getting beat, and, the guy, you can tell, man, he grabbed his nuts and he fucking said, you know what? I got to continue on. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to let this go the way it did the other way. And he sucked it up. And, I thought both of them put on just an incredible performance. The one thing I hate in a fight like that, there is no loser. Neither guy lost.
Right.
The time ran out, and the judges picked the guy who landed probably overall the better shots in the fight. And I think they did the right, they came up with the right guy. But Nate didn't lose the fight. The time ran out on the fight because, if the fight went on, it could have been a different story about who was going to win it in the end. But just an incredible performance by two guys that, when they fight, I don't care where they fight, it's going to be a great fight. They just match up well.
It was a majority decision too, and I'm in line with Glenn Trowbridge. I had the third round for Diaz 10-8, and I know people are going to say, well, if you had that round for 10-8, Diaz, you should have had rounds 1 for Conor 10-7. Come on,
no,
that's ridiculous. But I'm curious. Have you had a chance to look back and watch the fight, John, and maybe look at it from a judge's perspective rather than the third man in the octagon?
You know what I did? I went back and I did watch the fight, and I thought that both Jeff Mullen and Derek Cleary got the fight the way I would have scored it.
Right.
And the reason why I would not have given the 10-8 in the third round is Nate had about a 30 to 45 second moment at the end of the round where he was putting all the shots on. Mm-hmm. But you've got to remember everything that happened at the beginning of the round, because Conor put some great shots on Nate.
Dropped him twice that round.
There. And when it gets to the point of going to 10-8, we're going to go to 10-8 when we have both domination and damage with a duration of that happening. That's where we're starting to look at 10-8. And although I had at moments, Nate was starting to dominate the fight, it wasn't enough duration of that domination for me to give him the 10-8.
Right. Well, I just real quick, I went 10-8 and let me justify it, and you can be the expert in your field and tell me why I'm wrong if I am wrong. I just thought that if Nate Diaz had 20 more seconds to work, that fight is probably not seeing round number 4. I thought that his offense in the flurry outweighed more than the 2 knockdowns, because I don't think Nate was ever really close to being finished, where I think Conor was seconds away from being finished. That's why I went 10-8, but I don't know. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but does that justify a 10-8, John?
Stopping the fight, literally being saved by the bell? I think so.
But was he saved? You see, and this is where people, they start to bring their own emotions into the fight.
I could give a shit who wins, for the record.
You're saying something that did not happen.
Right.
It didn't happen. And we're saying, but I think if it went 25 more seconds, it could have been. It could have been completely the opposite. It could have been that Conor landed a shot that put Nate back on his butt. You don't know, and you can't go off of. It's 25 more seconds.
Let me say this too, John. If you would have stopped it in that flurry, I would have had no problem with that stoppage. All things said, I don't care who wins. I'm happy Conor won. It ensures a trilogy, and that's good for business.
Well, let's touch on that subject for a second. Let me touch on that for a second. And by the way, in relation to the analogy you were giving, TJ, it's like the same thing could be said if you follow that train of thought about the 5th round when Nate took Conor to the ground. If there was 1 minute or 45 seconds left in the fight, maybe he would have finished him there. The bottom line is the bell rang, the round was over, on to the next.
I mean, Conor won 3 rounds. Conor won 1, 2, and 4. Nate won 3 and 5. But with the 10-point must system, to me, it's 47-47.
All right, so let's take a step further. For obviously, the fight met the hype, unlike, the big Pacquiao-Mayweather fight. I'm not putting boxing down. I love boxing. But in reality, that fight did not meet the hype. This fight met the hype. Naysayers of Conor McGregor are naysayers no more. You can't say anything other than great things about Conor. You can't say anything than great things about Nate. John, you're right. This follows my analogy that even when you lose, you can still be a winner in a fight, and this is proof in the pudding on that subject right now. Now, Dana comes out and says there will be no trilogy fight. He has to go down and defend his featherweight championship. If he doesn't, vacate the title, fight Alvarez, whatever the case might be. The bottom line is that now it came out today that Conor is suspended for 6 months. So, in my opinion, and I think everybody's opinion, if this did break pay-per-view buys, I don't know. I think it's actually even better if we see this fight a year from now, let's say, versus 4 months from now. Let Conor heal up. Let Nate do his thing, heal up, maybe have a tune-up in the beginning. Go back, and we're going to have a huge fight with lots of hype. And we won't, if it potentially could bore people who are like tired of everything that's happened up to this point over the last 5 to 6 months, give them a rest. It'll all come back, and we'll have another huge pay-per-view. So what do you think? In your opinion, John, would you like? I mean, I want to see the trilogy. This is the Gotti Ward of MMA. If for those of you that don't know, the Gotti Ward trilogy in boxing was amazing. The second fight was so-so, but the third fight was amazing. Okay, this is our Gotti Ward, as an analogy. So I want to see a third fight. And again, I think, and I'm sorry, Conor's suspended for 6 months because of the damage to his foot, but let the king rest. Let him get back together. Let's see him go at it again. That's what I want to see personally.